Okay, it's doing its little thing. Here we go. All right, we're live. Are we up?
It said so.
Yeah, it's saying we're live.
All right.
So I'm going to keep an eye out and see as people start to tune in. But yes, it's Mike. This is Startoon. Week 3 update. How do you want me saying this when we start off?
Oh, what
People
you're
are-
going to be covering in the video.
Always have a little bit of lag as we start up. Hey guys, it's Mike from Startoon. Today we're talking about, well, it's our Week 3 update video. We're going to talk about what's going on in the animation world a little bit, what's going on here in the competition, and as always, we'll take some questions and drink some coffee. So whoever's paying attention, you got me right now. Okay. In the competition, this is where we expect to start getting submissions. We are still holding at 1, Jordan Weaver. We have offered you a prize, and we're going to reach out and track you down. I want to know what you guys would like as far as Startoon merch. Everything going on okay over there?
Yeah, apparently it's not.
Oh, we're having some technical issues. What seems to be the problem, fellas?
It's all good. Just get that.
It's going on.
Okay, I got you. So you want me to kind of bring that back around again, do a little intro? So we had some technical difficulties there. We are now recording. I'm going to throw out one more quick intro. Hey guys, it's Mike. So you get to see behind the curtain here. Hey guys, it's Mike. Welcome back to Startoon. This is our Week 3 update video. We're going to talk a little bit about where we're at in the competition, what's going on in the animation world, and as always, drink some coffee and answer some questions. So if you have them, please ask. Say hello, introduce yourselves, talk to each other, comment, press that little button for hearts and happy faces and thumbs, all that kind of stuff. You know we love it. I should probably cover up that. Okay, so where we're at in the competition, I was just starting, and we'll start it again. Where we're at in the competition right now, this is submission time. Still, we have how many weeks to go?
5 weeks.
5 weeks left to get your submissions in, okay? May 8th is the deadline. We need to see those things, guys. Come on, bring them in. Don't send them too long. This first round, we accept them, and I mean, I know you want to impress, but finishing is impressing, okay? Get that stuff into us. We still are holding at 1 with Jordan Weaver. We have promised Jordan a prize, and that's going to lead me to my first question to the Startooners out there. Startoon merch. We're going to do a T-shirt or something to send to Jordan, and we're wondering what you guys want. If we were giving away some T-shirts, we were giving away some mugs, that kind of thing, what would you want on it? Francisco's smiling face, a big Startoon logo. You tell us, okay? We're going to start messaging that out and seeing what we can get as far as responses from you guys. Because if we're going to bother making this stuff, I'd rather make something you kind of want. So let's get that sorted out. How many weeks to go? May 8th. And I'm starting to tag people. I'm tagging people in the messages for this. What I do, of course, is I go to people whose work I know. And if I didn't tag you today, don't worry, I'll get to you. I'm coming for all of you. But there's a lot of you out there whose work I don't know. So we tried last week in the creators group to get you guys to introduce yourselves, post some intros, post a bio. But how about posting something you made? We shared Benj Archon's Wackadoo a week or so ago, which is a cartoon from a couple years ago that I really like. So I'd love to see what else you guys make, and maybe give me a sense of what might be coming down the pipe this year. Share your stuff. That's why the creators group is there, okay? I'd love to see actual cartoons, actual drawings, or even work in progress. You guys can talk to each other about what you think is going to work. That might be playing your hand a little bit and sharing more than you want to, but why not? We're all friends. We're all here as a support group. Take advantage of it. Okay, what else are we talking about today? It's our third update. We're waiting on stuff. Okay, what's going on in the animation world right now? This week is MIPCOM. I printed up some stuff here. So the animation world is full of conferences and festivals and events that you can go to. Some of these things seem big and scary and far away and expensive, because they are. and some of them are accessible and nearby. And as animators, as artists, you may wonder why you should go, what you should go to. So right now is MIPCOM in Cannes, in France. It's one of the big ones. And it's one of the conferences. Really, these things kind of break down into two areas: business conferences and festivals. Now, I'm from Ottawa, so I've spent what seems like a lifetime going to the Ottawa International Animation Festival. My mom brought me to my first festival when I'm not sure if it was when I was 19 or when I was 17. They were every 2 years back then. And it's still a running joke that when I'm in Ottawa, she drives me there, and people often catch me getting out of the car and having to give my mom a kiss and say goodbye. And I've done this now in front of like groups of broadcasters who all make fun of me for a few days for it. But it's what we do. So I went because at the time, my mother was desperately trying to figure out if I could make a living drawing pictures because she was kind of unsure as to what my future was going to hold. And I started going, and it was really interesting because, I mean, you go to these things, and it's a really interesting. The Ottawa Festival itself is just it's home for me. And you'd start to see people every year you go. You see some of the same people coming back. I know when I first went, I didn't know anybody, and it was terrifying. And I'd go to see some screenings, and you'd go to some workshops, and you'd learn a little bit about how things are done. And you'd see some amazing artwork and some amazing films. To this day, films that kind of stuck in my head and impacted upon me. But every year you get a sense of sort of who you were in context with it. And eventually, now I go back and it's hugs and it's friends and it's this group of people that not everybody's there every year, but you see all the same faces and everybody gets together and it's kind of like a gathering of the tribe. Ottawa itself implemented the Television Animation Conference, now just called the Animation Conference, and it's their business conference, so to speak. I love it. I think it's a really accessible conference. It's not as big as some of the other ones. You can have genuine conversations. I find I get better business done there than at some of the bigger ones. It brings everyone. It brings a lot of people to your backyard, and it gives you an opportunity to meet people. I mean, you as animators, gives you a chance to meet buyers and broadcasters. The speed pitching options are amazing. So it's a soft one to kind of get your feet wet and get to know how this kind of stuff works, because these other ones are pretty big. So MIPCOM right now happening in Cannes. I'm going to read you how they describe themselves. MIPCOM, the leading global TV and digital content market. Every April, the world's most successful distributors and buyers attend MIPCOM to strike distribution and co-production deals, attend high-level conferences, and network with leading players in the global entertainment industry. MIPCOM is the perfect place for producers, disruptors, and paradigm shifters to launch the innovative content that is changing not only what we watch, but how we watch it. International Emmys take place. There are conferences right now on the future of kids. So Jesse Cleverly from Wildseed, who we've talked about an awful lot, he is there this week. He's talking about the future of kids broadcasting on a panel with people from Mattel and Disney. They have stuff about pitching, working with China, how VR is transforming kids' content. And there's even a session on what to do after you go home from the market to capitalize on the market you've just been to. It's built for producers and distributors. At the same time, it's good to know the business. And while these things are, I know a lot of creators find them both intimidating and in some ways, I don't know. We fall into these kind of producer and artist camps, and my feeling about these things is, it's good to understand them. If you have the chance to go once to one of these, whether it's TAC, whether it's TAC, one of the MIP conferences, because there's also MIPCOM itself, which is in October, or Kidscreen in Miami, go to have the shared experience. This is something I was talking about with somebody recently. Even if you go and you hate it, it's the conversation you can have with the person who maybe you're trying to sell your project to down the road. Have the shared experience of going. Have the shared experience of what it's like to go to one of these things. What's good and what's bad. What you liked, what you didn't. I firmly believe in getting as much information as possible and understanding sort of my field as best I can. These are great places to do that. Like I said, there's speed pitching opportunities. There's a lot of keynotes. There's a lot you can learn. MIPCOM, MIPTV might be a lot for some of us. Kidscreen in Miami is fairly accessible. TAC is incredibly accessible. Taffy here in Toronto does a lot of events as well. So there are options. Just go out and look for festivals. I mean, start there if that's more your comfort zone. Festivals are a great way to meet other filmmakers, other creators. Again, it's first time out is often intimidating, is often daunting, but you go. Ottawa, just the films themselves. I mean, they split up the screenings so that there's a little bit of everything in every screening because you're going to see some really experimental animation. I know a lot of TV people struggle with some of these festivals because it's all really artsy. It's all really, it's I don't know. It's not cartoons, but keep an open mind. The Ottawa screenings are fantastic, and I tell you what my rule of thumb is. You're going to fall asleep at least once. It does happen. I always fall asleep at one screening. I can't help it because over the course of the week you get pretty tired. You're going to see something that infuriates you, whether you feel like it's just wasted your time or whatever. But you're also always, and almost in every screening, going to see something beautiful. And that's absolutely the truth. And if you're a TV animator and you think this doesn't relate to you, don't be so quick to assume that. You're going to see something that you're going to want to understand. You're going to see something that informs what you do down the road, or at least makes you kind of try to figure out how they did that. Broaden your horizons a little bit. It's right in your backyard. For you Ottawa animators, it's right in your backyard. We have Taffy here now. TIFF Kids is another one for more of the conference stuff in Toronto. But check out your film festivals. These things are popping up everywhere. And I know there's a lot of films online, but here's the thing: is with the films online, the stuff you see online, you're basically curating that for yourself. You're seeing all the stuff that you like, and it's important every once in a while to get out of your comfort zone and see things that maybe you wouldn't naturally go looking for. And that's what these festivals are good for. They're curating at you, and yes, be prepared to get angry, be prepared to fall asleep, but be prepared to see something beautiful. That's the way that works. Annecy is the big one in Europe for festivals. They've recently released all the nominees. Canada always, and this year's no exception, has a huge showing at Annecy. I went through, I wrote them down. Casino by Steve Wollish and Hedgehog's Home was a Canada-Croatia co-production. J'aime les filles by Diane Obamswin. La Bêtise by Thomas Corriveau, Manival, which is another co-pro, this time it's Canada, Croatia, and Estonia. Tesla Lumière Mondiale by Matthew Rankin. When Time Moves Faster, another Canada-Austria co-pro. Animation According to Children, this is a grad film by Daniela Monzon-Lieto. Here's one, Le Clitoris, a grad film by Laurie Malpart-Traversy. In the TV, there's a show called Mouvement Deluxe. Episode 4, which is up, Toon Marty, which is up, and I'm really happy to say that our good friends at Tin Man, Super Science Friends, is up for an award at Annecy this year, which is huge for them. Another film that got in, this is not Canadian, but it is my distraction today. My friend Becky sent it to me this morning. Is Double King. It's an Australian short film by Felix Colgrave. We have to find it and share it because it's I appreciate I love that Becky shared this with me, and but you got to get your head around this one. Double King, Australian short by Felix Colgrave. I'm assuming that's how I pronounce it. Watch that thing. That's up there online right now today. We can find it. I'll find a link and I'll share it in a little bit. I mean, we'll go into more depth later on with a festival film, a festival proper segment on that. But just because it's MIPCOM right now or MIPTV right now, the other part of this is that do not expect, if you're doing business in the animation world, if you're pitching something, if you're trying to, do not expect to hear back from anybody this week. That's the other part, the other side to these things. When MIPTV happens, when MIPCOM happens, everybody's gone. And while there's a ton of business happening over there, there's no business happening right here. So just expect that and be patient with people. They'll get back next week, and some of them take a little extended vacation, but they'll be around soon. Okay, this week's video coming up on Wednesday. So we've been doing these road trips. We started off in Ottawa. Last week we were in Vancouver. A few last minute. I want to thank everybody for showing up because we had a last minute crisis with our venue. The power went out at our original venue, so we ended up at my old haunt, the Templeton. They were good enough. I should shout out to them. They were good enough to put us up. I encourage everyone to buy food and beverages. Last minute, 2 hours to go. We ended up at the Templeton. We had Andy Greeling in. We had Charlie Richards in. Great turnout. Tried our best to answer questions and get questions, which is always a bit of an issue from you guys, it seems. But yeah, so Vancouver was a success. I also shot an interview with none other than our big-time famous Canadian comedian Brent Butt of Corner Gas fame. Brent is an almost animator once upon a time who, thank God, went into comedy according to him. But he's Corner Gas is currently being redone as Corner Gas animated. So we were able to sit down with him. I want to thank Barry Ward and Bardell for giving us some space to do so. So we'll be coming out with that video down the road. But right now, this week is going to be our first outreach session from Ottawa. We're cutting that together as we speak. So essentially, this week's podcast on Wednesday is going to be one of our big, long ones. We've got like 2 hours of footage that we're just kind of trimming. And it's me, Joel McKenzie, Matt Haynes, and Sylvie Rochon, who we dragged up out of the crowd from Mercury Filmworks to answer a few questions with us. So that'll be coming out on Wednesday. Hopefully we're going to watch for that. We answered a lot of questions as far as character development, what people should be thinking about when they're setting out to do these things, setting out to write. We watched a couple cartoons. We'll probably cut those out so you guys don't have to watch them that way. Yeah, great turnout. We drank a few beers, which were, well, some more than others. So that's this week. We will try to follow up the following week with this is all our outreach section, so we're going to throw all that stuff up there as quick as we can. And we are currently planning for our Toronto outreach. We are going to pick a spot, pick a day, so stay tuned to find out when that's coming. We'll have an announcement going out. That'll be the last leg of our outreach right now, because we don't have that much travel budget. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is anybody out there? I see you typing. So we've got Amy over here. She's typing away, our social media person. So clearly there is something happening online.
There is. Okay, so we have some input on merch, actually.
Already? Great. Okay.
Yes. So.
Is it from Ben McAvoy?
Let's find this here. It is not.
Okay, good. Is it from Barnabas Warnoff?
So the comment is some Startoon Creators merch, something that says Startoon Creator.
Okay.
And limited edition.
So the suggestion that's coming online is a Startoon Creators line of merchandise, a limited edition Startoon Creators merch, T-shirt, mug, something along those lines. So I guess what we're talking about is the actual Startoon Creators logo. If you guys want to see a face on that, if you guys want to see an illustration on that, just tell us. Because right now that's our first nominee for merch. Maybe we'll do a poll or something like that on the page.
That's a great idea.
We'll do a poll on the page. We'll throw up some suggestions of what you guys might want to see, and we will leave it up to you. And then yeah. So because we're going to be doing a few giveaways. I don't know if that's something that you guys would buy. Do you guys want to see a store? Do you want to see a Startoon store with some merchandise available? Again, let us know. We're happy to do whatever you guys need us to do, as long as we can. We'll figure it out. Who asked that question?
I can't find it. It's lost in here.
It scrolled down too far.
But
Maybe you've lost the question.
I know I can't scroll that fast. But Brad Weaver says he also likes the idea of creator stuff.
Okay, Brad's seconding the creators line of merchandise.
And also Brad asks, is there any spot hidden on the interwebs where we can see all of last year's Startoon submissions?
We did tuck them away for now. So Brad is asking if there's anywhere that you can see all of last year's submissions. Now, we did make that playlist.
We have it. It's unlisted.
Okay, we have an unlisted playlist that we are going to put a link to on the creators page. Okay? We did kind of tuck it away while we were rebuilding the site, rebuilding the YouTube channel. I think maybe if the request is being made, we're going to check and see. Maybe we'll make it a playlist on the creators, the Startoon creators YouTube channel. We will see about adding that as a playlist. In the meantime, we will throw a link up to the submissions from last year because we should have a one solid playlist of submissions that we can do that with. So Brad, yes, last year's submissions are going back up. Okay, incentivize a few of you guys. Okay, there were a lot. There were 93. And that's not even counting a few other ones that were up there that maybe weren't exactly for the 6 to 11 demographic, and so they didn't get in. Which I think leads to another question.
Yeah, so we have another question from Jillian. She asks, can you give us some pointers on creating content for kids age 6 to 11? How is it different from age 5 and under?
Okay, pointers on content for 6 to 11, and how does it differ from preschool, 5 and under? This is one where it's, 5 and under, preschool stuff is generally educational. It's just soft. It's softer. The nice thing about the 6 to 11 category, and that's why we stress all the character stuff that we're doing, okay? The nice thing about the 6 to 11 is that you really have to spend your time developing those characters. We want more complex relationships. The preschool stuff tends to live. I hate to say this, but it's almost like a flatter world, and that's not to say that the same kind of character development doesn't go into it, but the way it plays out is softer and a little flatter. The relationships are not as intricate, and the options for stories are not quite as sophisticated. Really, the best thing to do is if you've got an idea for a show, and this is just kind of shorthand tips. Think of where you would want your show to be on TV. Go to Teletoon, go to YTV, go to that block. Like where's the show that you can see yours sitting next to on the dial? That's a bit of an antiquated term, but you go and you look at those shows because invariably you're going to be trying to create something that you want to see, that you like, and that you probably are. On some degree, most of us emulate the stuff we like. But it does come down to character. Which is why we push so much that way. This is why we build this whole thing from that out. So again, it's really going back to our resource videos and really, really exploring those. We had this come up as a question at the Ottawa outreach in terms of what should people be thinking about. This is in those early, not even just for this, but in general. People starting out, where do you think about in terms of writing? And it's, we get caught up in our stories, and we get caught up in our premise, and we get caught up in our world. And really, you spend all your time in character, stripping it all back and figuring it all out. That's why we have those questions, those exercises up there. You need to know these characters through and through. And essentially, we can always come back to that thing. It's why we had the breakfast challenge last year. You should be able to put 2 characters sitting around a breakfast table for a half an hour, and it should be hilarious. And it should write itself. That's what that whole write itself thing is. You should know these characters so well that when you throw a scenario at them, when you throw any kind of pressure at them, you know what they're going to do. They almost do it on their own, and that's kind of what that means. So I know this is kind of a long-winded answer to a question that is not a simple question, but 6 to 11, funny. Don't worry about educational, and if you're worried about something being a little too adult, don't sweat it. For 6 to 11, no swearing, no sex, no drugs. But people talk about things like Adventure Time and Regular Show. I think even Regular Show, in its first incarnation, was fairly adult, and they were doing drugs. And when not the creators, I'm not saying that they were doing drugs, the characters themselves were like doing all kinds of shit. And then when they went to make it into a kids show, they just pulled the actual substances out of it, but the behaviors remained the same. So those ridiculous high-as-a-kite behaviors were utterly consistent. They just took away the objectionable content that led to it. So write up, not down. It's easier to write something that's at this age range and then pull it back down into the safety zone than to take something, and we saw this last year with some of the things that were submitted, some stuff that felt young, and if you try to push it up, you break it. So that it almost isn't worth trying. So don't, if you feel like it's skewing young, throw it at us. We'll tell you what we think. The judges will tell you, our selection committee will tell you. But don't hesitate. Write the show that you want to see. Write the show that you've always wanted to see. Give me that character. Question?
Sylvie Rochon says, yes,
Sylvie.
RS was skewed for Adult Swim. Would that be Reddit?
Regular show. So thank you, Sylvie. Sylvie was just backing me up. Regular show was skewed for Adult Swim, and so they were originally going very adult with it. And it eventually landed softer kids. Thank you, Sylvie.
We have another question from Rebecca Champagne.
Becky. Becky's got a question.
Oh, Becky. Okay, if the main character in your idea intends to go through a lot of growth, at what point in their path should you be pitching that character?
Ooh. Oh, Becky gave me a tough one. Okay, Becky's asking if the main character in your concept is going through a lot of growth. At what point do you, I guess, land your character for the concept? Okay, so this is another thing about 6 to 11, and it's one of the tricky things. Again, we talked about it in Ottawa, I believe. So, high concept story arcs are tricky to do in the 6 to 11 area. You often have to build in the illusion of character development. There's not a lot of shows out there in this kind of 6 to 11 comedy range that actually have a lot of character arc. Successful ones that last many seasons, and we saw this, we've talked about this with a couple of our other guests over time, and we'll share that stuff with you. You do kind of get, like when the show started, and by the time you get to season 6, there can be a situation where that character is now behaving very differently than it did at the beginning, but it's almost a trick. It's still that sitcom thing where there's that reset button at the end of every episode. So if you are looking to create lessons learned, character development, and character arc, it almost has to be you almost don't. So if you've got a concept whereby this character has to learn and develop, you want to be at a point where you create the illusion of that development over the course of a half hour, 22-minute or 11-minute. But when you start the next episode, you also have to kind of hit that reset button again. So if your show is about a deeply flawed character who is struggling to become this thing, if the struggle is successful and your character becomes realized, the show's over. So you can't put it at this end of that chain. So what you want to do is demonstrate that struggle with smaller lessons every episode, and by the time you get to this place down the road, your KG viewer will have noticed that development. But your average viewer, your newbie, has to feel like they're coming in fresh and clean every time. It's really tricky. It's a really tricky one. It's much easier when you've got a serialized show with a strong continuity that has that arc, and it's all about beginning, middle, and end, and you're looking to do 3 seasons and over. But that's not really what this market does. That's not really what the 6 to 11 comedy does. I mean, SpongeBob needs to go on forever. Simpsons even needs to go on forever. And that's one of their challenges. It's one of the challenges of writing this stuff. So it's tricky. It's very tricky, and I don't have an easy answer for you. Hopefully we address some of that again in some more of our videos, and you'll be watching to see how other people do respond to it. I don't know, Becky, does that an answer? Is she saying anything? Yes, no,
other
maybe.
people are saying, great question, Becky. And she says, I'm here to challenge.
So great question, but no one's saying if it was a great answer or not.
We have another question from YouTube, actually, asking if you could define the difference between character-driven and plot-driven.
Okay, the difference between character-driven and plot-driven. You guys really put me on the hot spot today. Plot-driven. Okay. Coffee's kicking in. All right. Plot. You need plot. You need story engines. You need devices. And some shows. I think they're just the difference between plot-driven and character-driven. I mean, they're one and the same. Plot-driven to me is the flawed show. Because you don't want it to be about a character's job. You don't want to be about what that's like the script this week. The activity they're doing is not what the show should really be about. So this is where plot, script, story. These are all terms that kind of fold into each other. Focus on your characters. Don't worry. Plot will happen. Okay? Now, if you've got a mission, if this is what we're talking about, there's a plot driven, if it's because your show is about a quest and a mission and all that kind of thing, that's what you think your show is about, but it's not. Your show is not about those things. Your show is still about the characters. They have a quest, they have a mission, they have something they've got to do. But that quest, that mission, that adventure, that journey, whatever it is going to also be about the realization of their character. It's going to also be about that thing that drives them. And they then will become realized. That's more the kind of show that Becky was asking about earlier. That's a very, if you're talking about plot driven, I guess you're talking about multi-season arcs where the characters develop. Movies are plot driven, but they've got those strong basis in character. You have to start with character. Okay, you may have an idea that is a plot. You may have an idea that is an adventure. You may have an idea that is all that. But until you know, like, put it away, put it aside. Figure out who your characters are and why. You know, like if why am I going to spend time with this character going on this mission and this adventure if I don't like this character, if I don't know this character, if I don't understand this character? You are asking your viewers to give you 22 minutes of their lives every week. They're asking you. Again, I feel like I'm rehashing some of this. Some of this comes up in our in the talks that are coming up this week. You're trying to get into someone's home, and you're asking to borrow time from them. So if they don't like who they're visiting with, if they don't connect with who they're visiting with, you're not going to have a chance to tell your story. Let's take your plot, put it over here, go back to our videos, and answer all those questions about your character. Because if I don't care about them, I'm not going to care about your story. What else we got? What's that?
Okay. Well, since a lot of our viewers might be new to the animation business and looking for more information, why don't you tell us a bit more about how you got your start in the industry? And did you set out to work specifically in animation?
Okay, so this is an ego-stroking one, asking me about how I got my start in the business, how I got my start, and
did you always intend to
did
go
I
into
always
animation?
intend to go into animation? No, not at all. That's the easy answer on that one. I did not. I had no idea I was going to do this for a living. I'm assuming a number of people out there are people known to me, so you've probably heard this story 1,000 times. But for those of you who don't know me, and anyone who's actually asking this question, I guess, so I fell into animation at a time when you could. I was a comic book guy. I grew up drawing comics. I grew up like a lot of kids. We all drew. Somewhere along the way, I got some affirmation about something I drew really well. And that made me want to do it more because it made me feel good. And then I became one of those people who just drew in school all the time. But comic books were my big thing. Comic books, I was given a bunch of hand-me-down comics from... I had a nanny when I was a kid, and she had a son who was like 10 years older than me, and he had this big box of old comics. And then I found out later in life that she had previously been Bryan Adams' nanny, and a bunch of those comic books actually were originally Bryan Adams comic books. But I looked over them all to see if he'd written his name anywhere, but I never found anything like that. But those comics were amazing to me. Those comics were everything to me. There was some wish fulfillment there. There was whatever. So comics is what I wanted to do. I was not at an art school. I took art in school, and I grew up in that like 1990. I graduated in '92, and that's when all that image comic stuff was taking off, and Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane. So I was drawing all this crosshatchy stuff. But I went out to went to Acadia University in Nova Scotia to get an English degree, thinking I needed to do something real because I had no clear idea of any path towards comics. And I know a lot of guys now here in Toronto who are comics artists who all went to Sheridan for their illustration program, and they killed it. And then I really hated what I was doing there, and so I didn't succeed at it and was asked not to return. And then I went to Concordia. I put together a portfolio and I got into the Concordia program for animation. I was in their film program. And thinking maybe that movies is where I wanted to go, like live action. But I figured I could get into the animation program. So I did that. Now, the thing about Concordia was it was a really film board-oriented program. And while I look back on that now and think what a wasted opportunity, I would have loved to have been doing it, my 20-year-old brain just couldn't handle like moving sand around on glass. And collage. And I just wanted to draw superheroes and cartoons. So once again, maybe I didn't give it my all, and once again, I was not asked to return. So a stellar start for Mike, and I worked in a lot of restaurants for a while, and I ended up out in Vancouver because of a girl. And after some time out there, I realized I didn't want to work in restaurants anymore. And I'd been into Funbag animation in Ottawa, and they Gord Coulthard had been good enough to show me what model sheets looked like, and to show me what TV animation kind of looked like. So when I got out to Vancouver, I spent a couple days. I went when finally I was running out of money and I knew I wanted to stay. I went to every life drawing session I could find in town, and I did a whole bunch of that. And I used the last couple dollars I had on a portfolio, and I spent like a weekend just drawing stuff on the kitchen table that I thought might work for an animation portfolio, because I needed a job and I didn't want to work in restaurants. So, and I literally went into the yellow pages and I found like 2 or 3 names of some animation studios. And then I went to, back then there were a lot of these little galleries that sold animation cells and animation art. And I went to one of those and just talked to the guy because I had no idea. I actually didn't even have any idea what went on in an animation studio. I didn't know if it was like cell painting. I didn't know what the process was at that time. But this guy at one of these galleries sent me to a company called Studio B to talk to a guy named Rob Davies. And I went in there, and Rob was really generous with his time. Rob now is one of the partners at Atomic Cartoons out in Vancouver. Rob showed me what cleanup looked like. Rob showed me, he was amazing. He sat down and he put a Post-it over top, and he swished through this thing, and I couldn't believe how fast and how good he was. And they gave me some homework. I took it home, because they saw I could draw these superheroes, and it was this like giant, muscular, He-Man looking kind of king figure. And he told me to do a rotation. So I took it home and I did that. I brought it back on Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was. I think it was a long weekend. And I thought I was being given more homework, a test. Like they sat me down at a desk to kind of do something. But it turns out I had a job. And I didn't even realize till halfway through the day that I was working until they came and asked me for some information and showed me how to write an invoice. Like I was so green. But these guys were amazing. And that's where my education really happened. I was sitting next to a guy named this guy named Kurt, who went off to be a cleanup artist, best cleanup line I've ever seen. Went off to Fox to work in features down in, I think, Phoenix at the time. The guys in the hub, Rob Davies, Olaf Miller, Trevor Bentley, my favorite Morrow came later. These guys were amazing to me. They taught me a ton. I made one lifelong friend, Adrie Van Viersen, who now does feature film storyboard work. He's been working on the new X-Men movie, a bunch of stuff. But I learned then it was the studio. The studios were amazing, but I mean, like, it's the thing you go in and you're like the worst artist in the room. And I remember Blair Peters was one of the partners there, sitting me down and saying, "Okay, look, here's how this works," because he was an artist, an animator himself, and he basically said, "Okay, you work for me. Jobs come in here because me and like it's my name, and me and it was him and Chris Bartleman. Jobs come in because they have a certain expectation of what I can deliver. You have to be able to deliver at that level. Not today, because you're new, but we give you enough time to get up to speed that you have to be drawing for me." And I was there for like 3 years, I'm not sure. And I worked my ass off, and I drew 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and I learned a lot. And that was it for me. I was in. I worked a couple other studios in Vancouver, and then went back to Ottawa, and it was there that I made the switch over into producing and management at a company called Dynamite Cartoons. That is a story for another day. But yeah, today it's harder to fall into this. Like I said, I fell into it because I could draw. Back then there were a lot of people who that happened for. Today, the software you need to know, all that kind of stuff, there's a lot more training you need to have to get into this business. I still know people today who end up in animation because they can draw, but they can draw using the various software, and they already have that kind of understanding and knowledge because they've been trained on that already from somewhere else. But yeah, that was a real long time ago and very far. So last week in Vancouver was kind of a bit of a weird trip to go back and eat in the same restaurant I ate in 20 some odd years ago, but whatever. Here we are. That's my origin story, for those who care.
Brad has contributed a bit of his origin story.
Oh yeah, we got someone, Brad Weaver?
Brad Weaver. He says, "I got hooked on animation and learned what it was because of this old TV show called Splat. Most people I mention that show to have no idea what it is."
Brad says that he got hooked on Splat. That's what got him into animations, and most people that he mentions it to don't know what it is. Splat rings a bell. Splat.
It's a Nickelodeon show from the 90s.
Yeah, it was a Nickelodeon show from the 90s, but by the 90s, I was either flunking out of university or starting my career in making cartoons and not watching a lot of stuff. This is the age difference. This is how this is the old man in the room that I am now, is I don't know half the shows you guys got your teeth on. I grew up on Dungeons and Dragons and G.I. Joe, original G.I. Joe and He-Man, and the really old Spider-Man cartoon and the really old Hercules cartoon. And, of course, Warner Brothers, Merry Melodies, me and my mom. My mom would watch those things with me when I was a kid. So that's where that all comes from for me. So Splat, Brad, you're on your own for that one. It rings a bell, but you got me stumped too.
He says it was like Cartoon News, the show.
Cartoon News, the show. Okay.
Now, Reese York has a question.
Reese has a question.
About Startoon.
About
he says,
Startoon.
Can my submissions be in 3D?
Can your submissions be in 3D? Yeah, you know what? We will take your submissions any way you want to send them to us. Stop motion, 3D, 2D, whatever works. 3D. We don't see as much 3D because it tends to be a more labor-intensive process and a more costly process. So most people that we get stuff from tend to work in 2D. But by all means, man, we had a couple of 3D ones last year. By all means, 3D. And in some ways, once you build that model, you can do a lot with it. So by all means, yeah, man, 3D, 2D, stop motion, whatever works for you.
Excellent. And what about stop motion?
Yeah, stop motion by all means. What about stop motion? Yes, it's in the list. So please, whatever works. No puppets. I know we're using one, but we want to see animated content coming from you guys. So we ran through our software thing last 2 weeks ago. So if you need some tips on software, that's there. But yeah, we're talking cartoons here, and that can be 2D, 3D, or stop motion. That generally runs the gamut, okay?
Excellent.
What else?
And, can you tell us a little more what might be covered in the Ottawa road trip video that's being released on Wednesday?
So what else has been covered in the Ottawa road trip video? We talk with Joel. We talk with Matt. We talk a little bit about last year's process, what they liked, what they got out of it, and then we got into some questions. We talked a little bit about, I think the Vancouver one. We talked more about the development process in Canada. So they're blurring together for me a little bit right now. The Ottawa one, we talked about character development. We talked, the question that Sylvie climbed up on stage for was, is it better to pitch to a broadcaster or to a producer or studio? So there's an answer to that question in there that is, again, nothing's ever a straight answer with this stuff. So it's case-by-case basis, but we talked about that for a little while. I'm not sure what else. I've done a few of these now. They're getting blurry. Anything else?
That's great.
We're coming up on. We've been doing this for like 43 minutes now.
I know. I think that's it for now, unless anyone else out there has more questions.
So if you guys have any other questions, pop them up. We'll answer them next week. If you need a speedy answer, just email us at info@startoon.ca, or post them right here on the creators page, post them on the Facebook page, tweet them at us. So this is where you can, of course, I'll do my little round. Oh, is there one more?
There's one more. Brent Smith asks, what's the minimum length for submission?
Don't kill yourself, man. Minimum, it's 30 seconds in general. Like, don't give us more than that. Minimum length, I think if you're doing anything less than 10 seconds, you're kind of shortchanging yourself. So it shouldn't be a still image. We had a few last year that were just a still with a camera move on it. And while that's great to get it in the door, and if you're that confident, go for it. If you're that confident, you can just do a walk cycle and a good character description. But remember, the competition is fairly stiff. So while there were some things that I was intrigued by, that were just a walk cycle, there were things that I was intrigued by that was just a little cycle of some kind. You gotta shine. So yeah, I wouldn't go less than 10 seconds, and I really wouldn't go more than 30.
Excellent.
Okay, like I said, any other questions, tweet them at us, email, comment here. We will answer as best we can on the spot, and we will also use them as some of our Q&A for next week. So for right now, of course, subscribe on YouTube and follow us, Startoon.ca, on Instagram, on Twitter, and here, of course, in our creators group and on the Facebook group. Guys, share. Okay, I tagged a bunch of names of people to watch this video. But again, you've got people sitting next to you with great ideas at the studio where you work. Hit them up. Share them with us. Give me their name. I'll chase them myself. Okay? So that's it for us today. I will see you guys next week. Done.
So I think it's fairly easy